Here we go. Welcome back to another Habs Notebook Show with the hockey coach Francis directly for the beautiful country of Thailand. One amazing great Wednesday night, February 26, 2025. Tonight, of course, we're going to talk about the Montreal Canadiens, a couple of NHL news. I'm going to review the game between the Montreal and the Carolina Hurricane. And then we're going to talk about fun subject for the Montreal Canadiens, the trade deadline, Laval Rocket, the Montreal Canadiens prospect, and much more to give you a little bit more an idea what's going on with the Montreal Canadiens. And we are getting close on the trade deadline. Four more games for the Montreal Canadiens. They have two more games to play this week. We're going to do a preview game for tomorrow night against the San Jose Sharks and the Saturday against the Buffalo Sabres. So a lot of things to talk about. The Wednesday night, why not? We have a great show without them because they bring a lot of things on the table with the knowledge about hockey. Sit at home, ready to rock and roll from Hawkesbury, and he sit in the caveman in Toronto, and they are back for another weeks together. We welcome back Mr. Enartap and Mr. Marko Larabi are in the house tonight.
Hello, Coach. Hello, Hockey Nation. Hello, Marco. Always great to be together with you, discussing our favorite topic, Les Canadiens.
Absolutely. It's always very invigorating to come out to applause. I wish every day when I come into work and I jump onto my first conference call, it'd be amazing if some of my team like would put like applause every time I jump on the screen. So I don't get that response every day, so it feels good.
That's good. That's good.
We
Merited.
Yeah.
already 1 week without see you, Marco. What's going on? What happened in the last last 7 days for you?
Yeah, well, back to work, like things are kind of cooking here for sure. Like it's unreal the amount of I still can't believe how much snow we have here. It's getting a little warmer. So all my pathways are clear, but now I'm starting to worry about like when this is gonna melt. Where's all the water gonna go? Like now like so I have I'm really nervous about kind of going to shovel some of the snow around my house so that it like anyways, it's just so much snow, coach. Like hopefully we start getting some spring here. So getting to the end of February into March. So we're really kind of towards the end of winter here. So kind of looking forward. Definitely have had a pretty brutal winter. So looking forward to kind of getting
Yeah.
some better weather. And soon, really, really potentially maybe even like a playoff push here. And interested to see kind of how things are going to play out. So it should be good.
So what happened with the snow in Toronto, Mr. Nortap? Where do you put this?
Well, the good thing is that the last couple of days we've had temperatures of around 6, 7 degrees. It feels like we're in the Bahamas here, and a
Jeez.
good chunk of the snow has melted off. But I understand what you were saying, Marco, about where does the water go, because the sewage
Yeah.
system has to be very effective on the streets, and you
Yeah,
worry about the surroundings of your home, and hopefully water doesn't get in there, because those are big problems later on.
for sure.
Here we go, guys. We welcome many people in the chat. All of you, don't forget, please, to click on the like. We have Bush for Vermont, Charles, Gabriel, Perron, and Supéré. That's a long name, but welcome to the Hockey National Show. I believe this is the first time Stenderman knocked the door. Thanks to be with us. We have RJ Clabo with news and update. 3 game in NHL only tonight. One in action right now. It's a 3-1 Winnipeg against Ottawa Senator. Abination is with us tonight. PLW go with Patterson for 3 points and 5. PLW got a good chin last night with Suzuki. Congratulations. Larry Lavalley from Arizona, following by Evan Alexander. Welcome back. We have Mr. Roy from Thailand. Welcome. Joseph Laham. Joseph, welcome back. Back to back night, Mr. Joseph from Houston. Welcome back. And the Devils, Claude Richard, dans la capitale de Ottawa. Welcome back. Thanks to be a part of the show tonight. And then we have, of course, many others. So thanks to be with us. Don't forget, please, to click on the likes. And like we do at the beginning of the show, First of all, the subject of the night is boring game for the huge W for the Montreal Canadiens. This is the subject of the night. I think we have a lot of great things to talk about that game. Of course, going to do the headlines at the beginning of the show, like we do every time we are all three together. And let's start with Marco. Marco does always the first headlines. And for the first one, Marco, it is what?
Ben, coach, on va avoir un bon bec. Je me rappelle, ma grand-mère, elle voulait me donner un bon bec, un bon petit bec. So, little headline, we don't do many in French here, so je pensais que c'était le fun d'avoir un petit bon bec pour nos auditoires français. So, yeah, so listen, like, it's a pretty interesting opportunity for Owen Beck to come in after Doc's injury. I think a lot of us were curious to kind of see what that would look like with him playing with some not bad players, right? Like playing with Newhook and with Mr. Patty Ice on his right wing. So listen, like I thought overall, like I was a little surprised at the amount of minutes. Like it was a little low on the minutes. I think he finished under 12 minutes. It was like almost like 11 minutes that he played. But listen, like probably wasn't his best game. Like he had played like some really good games, but I think he was probably really concentrated on just being sound defensively, being in the right places, and overall, like I felt like as a first game playing those kinds of minutes, I think he did pretty well. I think my position is pretty clear that you know I don't think having Beck, even in your top nine to start the year next year is going to be like maybe a third line center, um, maybe, but again, like this is good experience for him because if let's say Montreal decides to go and get rid of Evans, get rid of Dvorak, and they're going to try Beck center starting next year. My concern is maybe they're going to take a bit of a step back. Not to say that Beck is not going to be a good player and that eventually he won't be there, but it's people might underestimate what Jake Evans brings. People used to say when Dano left, well, don't worry about Dano leaving. Jake Evans will just be able to replace him. Well, it's only really like recently that he's been at that level, right, where it can be comfortable saying that he's really playing at that level. So I like Beck, and let's see kind of what he can do with these augmented minutes. I think it was pretty. I think if we're all asking ourselves the question honestly, did anybody miss Kirby Doc in the last game? If I did a poll, I think most people would say no, I didn't really miss him, especially at center. I think for me, it would be nice to have Kirby Doc on the wing in our top nine. But listen, like I think we all know Montreal needs a second line center, preferably a left hand shot. But c'était le fun de voir un bon bec. Watching him for the game, I think he did pretty well, and it's a good opportunity for him to get some minutes and see what we have here.
Well
Intertop, what
said,
did you think?
Marco.
What did you think of that game, Coach and Intertop?
Well, I mean, Marco, I've always been very bullish on Beck. I just like his style. I like his character. I like his compete level. I do agree with you that sometimes you don't want to bring them up too soon. Sometimes, especially when he's got good chemistry going with Laval at the current moment, and Laval's doing relatively well, except for maybe the last week or so with the injuries that they've incurred. But um, I personally think he's NHL ready. As long as you don't obviously put him on the second line right now, like he can probably pinch hit at that spot if he had to at some point, like we saw yesterday. But he's most effective if he's on, I'd say, the third line center for the team, and he's killing penalties. He's got relatively good speed, and most importantly, he can win faceoffs for you, and I think that's all essential moving forward. But it'll be interesting how the dynamics of all this will play out over the next couple weeks at the trade deadline time, and whether he's going to be with the team or he's going to go down back to Laval.
Yeah. Sorry about that. I think, if, like Marco said, it's more about experience for him. Marco said evaluation. I think that's a great time for evaluate what he looked like, and he still have 24 more games. Yeah, 24 more
Yeah,
games. So,
yeah.
if he's still around the Montreal Canadiens, I think that would be good. We'll see what happens with Anderson. Mr. Nartap, I almost, do you want me
We,
to start to sing the song We Are Family? Or
Sister Sledge, you do it, Coach. I'm thinking those of us that are old enough will remember the song. Of course, we are family, and but what I try to bring forth here is first and foremost just the importance of building a culture on a team. And I think when Montreal undertook the whole rebuild process, I think they did it right. Like they started from the top, moved down, got the right people in right places. From there, they drafted the types of players that they wanted, at least that they believed that could contribute to the culture that they wanted to establish. And when we talk about uh, culture, team culture, it really encompasses many things, right? That they're really like shared values, beliefs, behaviors, attitudes. That's the most important, I think, and that ultimately works towards defining what the team identity becomes, right? There's some teams in the NHL that you look at and you say, man, they've been rebuilding for twice as long as Montreal has, and they're not moving. They're not going anywhere. It seems like they're stuck in quicksand, and that's because a lot of times they don't have an identity. They don't have that resounding um, feature that brings them together. And when you put that together and with the history that Montreal has, and and of course the infamous Flanders Field line that they have, to you from failing hands we throw the torch, to yours to hold and high. I mean, maybe some of these players are very young and it doesn't resonate, but when they look at the pictures of the ex Habs that were there and what they had to endure to get to the stage that they did, it's now that you're starting to see some of these things come together. For example, the other night when Slavkovsky got the goal, the 8 hits, the fight. I mean, that's all part of it. You saw when he went to the penalty box, the entire team rallied right behind him, fist pumping him, for that. Now, you don't want, obviously, Salkowski to start getting into too many fights because if he meets up with the wrong guy, he could very easily get clocked, and that's not somebody that you want out of your lineup. But the important thing is these little actions turn into monumental things that work towards building the identity and establishing family within the organization. And I think we're starting to get that. I think the players believe that the management cares about them. They're not just dumping people, and like we've been through it with Petrie and a couple of other players where they've treated them well in their exit. And I think we're going to see that again come trade deadline time. But all these things, like I said, they all work towards assuming the identity of what the coach is, assuming what the identity and the history of the team is. And from what I'm seeing, I'm liking the fact that they're starting to come together. And that's more important right now than just the wins.
that's cool.
And Intertap, I feel like I want to reach over the screen and give you a big Owen Beck. Maybe you deserve a Owen Beck as well. But yeah, listen, culture is important for sure. And I think you're right. Like we definitely see some really good signs. You hear a lot of cliches, like a lot of players
Yeah.
say, "Oh, it's a great room, great bunch of guys. This is the best room I've ever been in," and it's something that you hear quite a bit. So it's hard to really know when it's true or not. But you definitely get the sense that these guys definitely kind of are pretty close. For me, the key to the culture, and I'm sure if you once all these guys that are all hugging, if you move away, you would find that Martin Saint Louis is in the middle of that big pile of people, and Martin Saint Louis is the key. Like, say what you will, like we all like Nick Suzuki. We think he's doing an okay job as captain, but the real captain of the Montreal Canadiens, let's not kid each other, is still Martin Saint Louis, right? We heard when you hear them the players in interviews and you hear them repeat things that Martin Saint Louis talks in press conferences like it's their own ideas. And to me, that's it shows how persuasive and how influential he is to the team, because that's a sign of that his ideas are kind of like buried in these guys' heads, right? So you'll hear Martin Saint Louis say something in a press conference like a week before, and then you'll hear a player casually mention it in conversation, responding to a question like a week or two later, right? So to me, and then let's remember when Patrick Laine first showed up this summer, Martin Saint Louis talked about, we're not just building a house, we're building a home, kind of thing. To me, these are all kind of concepts and things that he's driving. And any good coach, like their objective basically is to build such a good culture that eventually you don't even need the coach. Like basically the players are the ones that run the culture in the room. And I think Saint Louis, that's his objective. Like, and I think that's where we're getting closer to that. But I think right now he's still the main influencer in all that.
You're absolutely right about that. Well said.
Couple of people knock the door. David, welcome back. Maurice Robillard, welcome. We have Abination, like I said earlier. Luc Fortin is back with us tonight. Billy Martin. Billy Martin. Billy Martin. Billy, that's funny.
He's going to get fired three times
Billy
during
D
this live stream.
is in the house. Luc Fortin in the house. And Pete Martin is in the house. Welcome, everybody. Don't forget, please, to click on the likes. That'd be awesome. Here we go. Last one for me. It's a bit more complicated, Kent Hughes. This is my headline for today. The reason behind that, I think the trade deadline, we have 4 more games to go. I think it's San Jose, 2-time the Buffalo Sabres next week also. So before the end of the trade deadline, Montreal is still in the mix. And for Kent Hughes, he have to figure out what he needs to do. And I think it's getting more complicated. I think he wants to play meaningfully game, but still he tried to figure out what he would be the best for the Montreal Canadiens a long term. So I think the W yesterday a little bit complicate the situation for Kent Hughes for the trade deadline. So it'll be interesting what he's going to do, and honestly, and I could be a little bit more what the Montreal Canadiens fans are looking for. So I would like to hear from both of you. What do you think about the situation for Kent Hughes, Marko?
I don't know, Coach. Like, I don't know if it's more complicated. Like, I don't think them winning these 2 games, or even if they, conceivably, like Montreal has the opportunity to win against San Jose, and all of a sudden, you never know, like a couple games against Buffalo, hopefully they get on a bit of a run. And but I think at this stage they have a good idea. They know what they have, in terms of what the team is, and I think they have a pretty good idea. Like I think they probably have a good sense of what the negotiation is with Jake Evans and where that is, and I'm sure at this point they know what the marketplace is for the assets that they have. So I think they know what's there, and really it's just a matter of kind of deciding what's best for the team, right? Like I'm sure we'll talk about it at some point today, but is trading Savard for whatever they think is in the marketplace, is it worth it versus keeping him for the end of the year? Is same thing with Jake Evans. So I don't know if it's more complicated. Like, I think the way that he's making his life more complicated, Coach, is that he's making it complicated for the buyers, because he's saying, I don't really want to pick. Like, what I really want is I want to combine what you're asking with this asset, and I'm looking for a good young player. I'm looking to get a first round pick if you take these 2 guys. So I think Montreal's in a position where they're not desperate sellers. Like, if Montreal kind of goes to the trade deadline and makes 0 moves, and they have a couple of free agents that walk away for nothing on free agency, I don't think any fans are going to be super pissed that we didn't get a second round pick for Jake Evans. It's not going to make or break the rebuild at this stage. It's not the best asset management, but it's not going to move the needle that much on the rebuild. And you can again make the argument that it's better for the team for them to have those guys around and they continue to be in the mix, right? So I think at this stage they probably have a pretty good idea of where they're going, and I don't think any last minute results are going to move the needle that much.
And after
Yeah, you're absolutely right, Marko. I think Montreal is in a situation where they're pretty much holding the cards. They're not at the stage where they need to seriously think about acquiring a player to come in and make a playoff push. I don't think that that's the essential issue right now. They're trying to evaluate the core players that they do have. They're trying to clear out some of the contracts that maybe exceeds the plan as they set it out in terms of their blueprint. And if they have to, if the opportunity presents itself, they have lots of assets to deal with. You mentioned they have draft picks, they have the players that with the contracts, they have even some of the younger players that may not necessarily. I don't want to say don't fit Montreal's scheme overall, but they just won't have room for all the different players that they've drafted and developed to come up in the system and be afforded the right position to play at. Right? You could have a defenseman that probably merits second pairing ice time, but maybe there's other people ahead of him, so you're forced to play them on the third pairing, and that's doing a disservice to them as well, right? Like you want the pieces to fit in well together, and so if that means you package a couple players together, you can throw in picks, and you can get that, whether it's a young prospect or maybe get that elusive first round pick, then I think that's the ultimate plan that Hughes has in mind, right? So we'll wait to see what happens. It's exciting. It's coming up, on March 7th, and I wouldn't be surprised if things start to come together. Like I think teams right now, I think you would agree, they're very trepid to move forward because they might have a player in mind that they want to go after, like a third line center, but maybe they're waiting, to see if something better could emanate, or maybe if the team will buckle and give an extra pick or something to go along with it. So it's exciting for the entire NHL, but I think for a rebuilding team, this is what we've been looking forward to seeing for a long time, and I'm glad that we're starting to have to make difficult decisions.
And it's a little different from other deadlines in the past too, right, guys? Like, you could say Monahan last year was, probably in most cases for teams that were looking for a center, was at least one or two on their list of the top guys they would like to go get, right? But this year, not to say that Evans isn't valuable, but if you're looking for a center, he's probably like the third or fourth option that teams are looking at, that they would get, unless you're really looking for somebody to play on your fourth line, right? But so in that sense, it's not like Kent Hughes can be super aggressive and he has like a bunch of people. The market is a little bit different for these kind of assets than last year too.
Yeah.
You're right about that, everybody. Thanks for all the headline we got. We welcome back a couple of new people. Roger Delaney, we have Luciano, moderator. Welcome back. Lorraine Lavallée, we said earlier. Thanks to be with us. Ron was a moderator too. And we appreciate everything's going on. We got a little bit more is going on with the NHL. First of all, the New York calendar announced Noah Thompson return. This is a huge and news for the Islanders to get him. The Islanders yesterday. Not a good thing for them. Again, the New York Rangers. Meanwhile, they make a trade with the Tampa Bay Lightning. They send Tony DeAngelo to the Tampa Bay Lightning again. Islanders. So JC Islanders trade again. We know Islanders play with the Montreal Canadiens last season. Edmonton claim Travis Dermott as a defenseman, and Pittsburgh put on the waiver Matt Nieto. So this is pretty much all the news about that. We'll see what happening. Edmonton struggling last 3 games in the beginning. Returned from
So
the
bad.
Yeah.
So bad
right?
since they came back. It's unreal. I've watched a couple of the games since they've been back from the break, and they just look absolutely terrible. Terrible. The goaltending has been bad. The whole team is just completely discombobulated, not winning any puck battles. So we've seen Edmonton be like that before. Like, we know how badly they started the season last year. They didn't have a great start this year, but when they're humming, they're just as good as anyone else in the league. But it's one of those teams they tend to take their foot off the gas for long periods of
For a
time.
while. Yeah.
Yeah, so we'll see how it goes.
and
Interesting
and
move for. So I
and
was
you
just gonna
wonder,
say for.
Marco. Yeah, go ahead.
I was gonna say for Nashville, I think interesting, good little risk to take for it's Nashville, right? That or is it
Yolo.
who's it? Yeah, you loan it. So D'Angelo, he signed. Is it in Nashville that he got traded to Tampa?
No, Islanders.
Islanders,
No,
Islanders.
He came
are
back
you
for the
loaning it?
KHL.
Yeah, no, I just couldn't remember. I remember he got signed from the KHL. I just couldn't remember if it's the Islanders or Nashville. The Islanders are starving for young prospects, so nice little move for them. Like some youth, like we all know kind of what Ylonen can bring, but it shows you how desperate Ylonen, how the Islanders are desperate for young talent.
Yep, yep. Here we go. Ovechkin, 12 goal. Score again yesterday. And he's at 12 goal to one Gretzky right there. Going to talk about a little bit later about Ovechkin, but I just want to announce that. Follow him, everything. Can he score this year? He reach one Gretzky, we'll see. And Adam Fox on the ER. So I want to hear from you. In our tab, we just talked about Thompson. Now it's Fox and the Rangers without him. It's a bit like the Boston without McAvoy.
Yeah, it's a huge hit for a team that's trying to desperately grasp that last wild card spot. And would we have thought at the beginning of the year we'd be saying that for with regards to the Rangers? It's quite the story in terms of where they're at right now. And again, you know, I talked about earlier how important it is to have the proper chemistry and on a team. And I think that's really the biggest issue that the Rangers have is things aren't fitting together. Now you're starting to throw together also the fact that you got key players on the injury reserve, and I think uh, it's not just Fox. I think the Andre is on the injured as well. He got injured yesterday. So those are
Yeah,
two big players to lose on defense. Shesterkin, he's been playing okay, but I think they need more than just okay from him in order to really make a move here. And they have the same issues up front. It's a tough predicament to be in if you're a Ranger fan. With regards to Ovi, I mean, I'm not going to elaborate on this too much because we talked about it the other night. It's a great storyline to follow. To me, the ultimate thing for Washington and Ovi would be what a story this would be, a fairy tale story. Ovechkin gets the goals to break Gretzky's record before the end of the year, and that motivates the team also in the playoffs, and they go on and win the cup. And if I'm him, I retire at that point and ride off in the sunset.
yeah, like such a great story with Ovi, and like everybody was wondering, after what was just an amazing success with the Four Nations face-off for the NHL, all these news outlets and the buzz around hockey, everybody's wondering, okay, like what do we do now? Like, how do we keep people's attention? Like, what a gift it would be for Ovi to get closer and have the Ovi, kind of record watch, right? Have Gretzky start appearing in each game, traveling with the team and being there just in case he breaks the record. This is an amazing opportunity for the NHL to keep the momentum after the Four Nations face off, because right now, the game is hot after the Four Nations face off. You have, and by the way, guys, like, how you can tell, like, I know, like, you can see there's ESPN that had things on hockey and everything else, but another way you can tell that hockey is hitting different people here on YouTube. If you're interested, go look at the amount of different reaction videos of people in the US reacting to the Canada US game. It's interesting. You have like tons, like, obviously we know that it's primarily a white sport, but the amount of like black US reactors looking at the game, and just like watching hockey for the first time and reacting to it, very, very interesting. So it's a cool way to tell that you can see that the NHL definitely has some traction out there. So the OV goal chase is another great way to keep fans interested. So let's hope that the NHL does a great job with that as well, and really make something cool out of it because it's a pretty historical event, right? Like to break the
Yeah.
overall goal record.
Well, son, let's go
Absolutely.
talk a little quick about the Montreal Canadiens. Anderson, no news, honestly, because it was a day off for the Montreal Canadiens. Said that sometime they are day off like that, they could go to the ring and they have some treatment day. So, but nothing we heard from Josh Anderson from nowhere. And the big news about Jake Evans, they request a 5 years deal at $4 million for $20 million. How you feel about that, Marco?
Yeah, well, to start with Anderson, like I couldn't believe it. I just feel so bad for the guy, right? Like the guy's been an absolute warrior, just kind of fighting through everything he has been over the last couple months. Reportedly, he spends like hours on the trainer's table just to. It makes you think a little bit about Shea Weber. You know, like remember we heard stories years later about how hard it was for Shea Weber to get ready for games. Like he would show up hours and hours before just to get his body ready, right? Like it's all like just having the trainer create all these contraptions and like freeze things and who knows what they were doing to his body. It's like a Frankenstein monster after a while, right? So with all that, everything that Anderson's kind of went through to keep playing and having such an not only just playing but really showing up every night, doing his thing, being impactful in his own way, playing the role that Martin Saint Louis asked him to play to a T, and then you have that happen to him again, and oh man, if I was his teammate, I would just like feel so bad for him. It looked pretty bad. I don't know if is this the camel that literally broke the straw's back. Like it's just it seemed like just maybe one too many things happening to Anderson. Hope like it would be great if he can kind of stay there, coach, because we're just getting that balance across the four lines. So losing Anderson on that line with Dvorak and Gallagher wouldn't be great timing. Happy Nations asking, is he that beat up? Like, yeah, he's very beat up. He's obviously been playing really, really beat up. If you look over the last 10 games, like sometimes he looks amazing, but then he'll just take a little hit and he'll go to the ice, and you see him how hard it is for him to get up. So I feel terrible there. In terms of the amount here, coach, I think yeah, there was some reports saying that that's what his agent is asking. I think that's a little bit on the high end of what I'd be willing to do. I think my position has been 3.5 is probably the highest that I would go. Maybe a solution there is instead of 5 years, maybe they go 6 years at 3.5. But then you're getting into a term. I think it'd be pretty easy to get rid of that term after the fifth year. If for whatever reason Montreal want to get rid of 3.5 is going to be almost nothing when the salary cap is higher. So maybe that's a sneaky way they get it done, but I think that's a little high for Jake Evans at 4 million.
Yeah, maybe if they front loaded it, Marco, it would be a little bit easier to get
Maybe.
rid of the contract later on. But I agree. Like I think it's too much for my liking. I think you can find replacement for Evans, whether it's through your own organization system or you go out and get somebody. I mean, I'd hate to see him go. I love his play, and I think he's come a long way to get where he's at. But like as somebody said earlier, business is business, and you have to make sure that you don't do things that will jeopardize where you want to go. With Anderson, it looks like it was a very sort of violent hit that he incurred against the boards, and they're talking about it could be something like lower back. Uh, but the last thing I had heard is it wasn't too bad today, so I don't know what that means. We'll see. But you're right; he's been playing like what a resurgence from him from what we saw last year to what we're seeing this year, and you really have to commend them for coming out and playing with minor injuries. I mean many hockey players do. That's the nature of most of the players, but there's many that will sit things out as well. So compliments to him, and hopefully he can come back and continue contributing.
Yep, we'll see what happening. Recap game. Montreal beat the Canada Hurricane 4-0 yesterday. We're going to talk about that game. And first of all, before we talk, we always bring you some information on the game. Lenny Suzuki, 3 point, 1 goal, 2 assists. Sakoski, 1 goal. Back-to-back game for Sakoski, 3 hit for him. Then we have 2 power play goals yesterday. And then we have a PK, a perfect special team was good for the Montreal Canadiens yesterday. Beck playing the second line, like Marko talk about this. And Montebo got his fourth shootout of the season. Very structured game for the Montreal Canadiens. And whatsoever was a boring game, but you have reason behind that. And I think for me, Strobel Jakai played steady game as a defenseman for the Montreal Canadiens. They keep this very simple, but again, Jakai did it. Again, Ottawa shot from the blue line, rebound in front of the net, and I think it was Anderson put the puck in the net, I believe, or it could be someone else. And then yesterday, Strobel did the same thing, tip in front of the net. We have a 2 goal in front of the net, tip by players, Sakoski and
Line.
exactly. And
Yeah,
then we have Sakoski, I think, was screening on the goal of Lane Hudson.
that's right.
Right?
He, d-
So
he
good
doesn't
game
get
overall.
he doesn't
So
get a point, but
give us a
yeah.
bit what you think and how you feel about that game, Marco.
Well, I disagree that it was a boring game. Like I don't know, like it's like I think it was a low risk game, and Martin Saint Louis. And again, like I was saying, remember, you can tell Saint Louis' message is getting through when you hear players repeating the same thing he's saying. Since the break, since they came back from the Four Nations, the main message was risk management, right? Risk management, making sure that you're only kind of taking risks if something on the other side of that risk is worth doing, not feeding the other team's offense and all that. And that's what we saw last night. And even against Ottawa, coach, is you're seeing a very, very disciplined team, not hurting themselves, not shooting themselves in the foot, doing the simple plays. If you want to tie it back to another thing that we saw, and coach, I don't know if you have, we're talking about things around the NHL. Did you guys see the interview that Seth Jones gave after his game the other
Oh
night?
yeah.
He was talking
Did he
about
give a
how,
message or what?
yeah, saying how the team hasn't improved at all and how they're still not able to play a simple game. Like it's the complete opposite of what we're seeing in Montreal, right? Like Montreal has improved. So we're seeing here, how Montreal, how effective they were at going low to high. Pretty much all of the goals that they scored, like that they scored, were from going low to high. Other than this power play goal, which is a really nice snipe by Suzuki. You could tell Suzuki was a little bit frustrated with the power play because he's like, screw this, I'm just going to take it, shoot it myself, because their power play had looked really, really disorganized before that. But I didn't find the game boring at all, coach. It was just really low risk for Montreal. They didn't, they weren't generating a lot of volume in terms of shots, but that's okay, right? Like it's the opposite of what the Carolina Hurricanes do. The Carolina Hurricanes, they're known for being a team that they just put everything and everything to the net, right? And we also kept hearing throughout the broadcast of the game last night that the Hurricanes are the team that spend the least amount of time in their own zone as well. So listen, like the Hurricanes team that they played last night, if I thought they were going to come out a lot harder because they had a terrible game against Toronto as well. So it's a team that I think right now is a little bit confused with what's going on with Rantanen, kind of readjusting after a pretty big trade. So we didn't see the best from Carolina. Anderson, it was his first game back in a while as well too. But listen, like you have to take advantage of those opportunities. Even though Carolina didn't play their best game, Montreal could have easily kind of made it easy for them and made some mistakes and allowed them to get back in the game. So Montreal, very, very patient, and really didn't give them very much. Really, the best opportunity they had, I think they rang one off the post at one point. I think it was Aho that hit the post against Montembeault. So, like, I think you nailed it. Structured game.
And
Suzuki, I think, was really leading the charge here. And for me, like I'll give it away, but for me, kind of Struble has been a bit of a revelation here, playing with Hudson over the last 2 games, right? Like it's been pretty effective. I can't say that I was really thinking that was going to work when I saw they were putting them together, but in the 2 games that they've done it, Struble's he maybe took the break to have a little bit of a reset himself, and we're seeing Struble resembling a little bit of the Struble that we saw when he first came up last year, which is really, really good news. So just a really solid game, coach. Like, hopefully it's something that they can maintain here and keep in the race here a little bit. We'll have to see.
And after, before you start, I would just say the boring
Yeah.
game, guys, is because 20 shot total after 40 minutes
Yeah.
for both teams.
Yeah.
Montreal Canadiens have 4
Okay.
chance to score a goal yesterday. So for the fans go to the game, that's boring if you go that way, right?
I don't think
Depends.
so.
Depends on the
I don't think
fans.
so. It depends. Yeah. Like, I think to me, scoring
When I
chances
say boring,
happen.
it's not entertaining. Does it make sense?
Look.
Yeah.
Well, no,
Yeah.
it's still entertaining. I would I would say it was low event, right? But for me, it's entertaining when I see that Montreal is playing well and not making mistakes and giving up terrible scoring chances. Then to me that's entertaining because I'm like, okay, they're playing the right way. They're not making mistakes, and all that's telling me is, that's good. And then for Carolina, they're also a very disciplined team that don't make a lot of mistakes. So you're just seeing two teams. It's kind of like can you say the Canada US game, the championship game? There wasn't a lot of like a ton of scoring chances in that game either because they just didn't make that many mistakes. There's not a lot of room out there. So not to say that this was like playoff hockey, but you just saw two teams that played a pretty clean game, didn't give up a lot. There wasn't a lot of breakdowns. So it just meant that there wasn't a lot of chances. But it just, to me, it's like a chess match, right? Like it's still entertaining to watch a chess match for me because it's waiting to see who's going to make the first mistake, who's going to force the other team to make a mistake. So I still find that entertaining.
And after,
Yeah, Marco, I was actually going to say exactly that. I said it was under different circumstances, but a long while ago, you had made one of your headlines about it. This is a chess game. Now you were talking about how to rebuild and stuff like that, but it applies to this as well. Like this was not only a well planned out game by the coaching staff and the players, but well executed by our players. When you look at the
Yeah.
fact that Carolina is something like I think either the fifth or the sixth leading team with shots on goal.
Yeah.
And what they wait for is opportunity. And that's how they score their goal. They don't score a lot, even though they have scored this year, but traditionally, they don't have that elite superstar that can, take the game on his back and sort of carry the team. So they're opportunistic team, right? Like they wait for their opportunity and they capitalize and they make you pay. And Montreal sort of knew that. They played it very well, very structured. They executed when they had the chance. I was going to add, don't forget that shot that Slavkovsky took at the back of Anderson's head and almost went in,
Oh yeah.
hit the
Coach,
hit the crossbar.
did you see though the replay of that? Like they had an
Yeah,
angle on RDS and you could see Slavkovsky's eyes. It was the camera
staring.
angles. Yeah, it reminded me, that look in his eyes that after he scored his first goal and he stuck his tongue out, like his eyes were really big. Is you can
Yeah.
see like he had a pretty intense look in his face when he took that shot. It was pretty cool.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
and I think I'm not 100% sure, Coach, but I think he had 4 hits in that game. Not that it's a huge issue here, but like I like the fact that he brought in a another dimension to his game that makes use of part of his talents, which is his size, right? Um,
Yeah.
yeah, I thought it was a well planned, well executed game on behalf of Montreal. And you have to compliment Montebo because even though he had 20 shots on net, he made some key saves at key times. Coach,
Yeah.
you were saying it all night long in the live play. This next goal, Montreal has to make sure that they get the next goal here and don't allow any sort of confidence in Carolina's game, and that's exactly what they did.
In a
unfortunately,
way,
you did
under
not did at the right time when you have a 5-3, a 2-man advantage.
yeah,
Um,
yeah,
that was a
Yeah,
difficult one to watch. They scored the last 2 times. They got a 5-3, but yesterday they don't
yeah.
shoot the puck at all. It was too many passes left and right. So they have to give that line, and Suzuki was a little bit more too patient I believe, format. He was looking only for the perfect shot. And sometimes you have to pass the puck more. Um, and Hudson, we have to give credit for Kevin Hill. Usually, Marco, on the low side, right? Like Hudson cannot go on the far side or the transversal pass to other side. That's usually you do on the 5 versus 3. And he tried 3 times. He was looking for Caulfield or Sakowski, and it didn't happen yesterday. But they scored on the power play at 5 versus 4, and the PK of Kevin is number 1, I believe, for the
Yeah, that's a good
Number
point
NHL.
one.
too.
So
They
I have
scored
to agree with
twice.
it on
Twice
that
on
one
the
for
power play.
sure. To add more on the game, guys, I want to know a little bit more what you feel about Emil Heineman impact yesterday again. You have a really interesting stat with Emil Heineman. The Montreal played for 558 winning percentage, 22-17-4. And without him, Montreal played at 5-9-1 at 337 winning percentage. If Heineman was in the lineup, Montreal could be right now in the playoff. Without him, they could be at the bottom 5 in NHL. And Martin Louis said that you cannot teach a player how to play the game and teach him how to win at the same time. He was referee when he kept with the Montreal at the beginning of 3 years ago. That's what is more difficult. He said for Heineman, it's very difficult right now. He tried to learn both at the same time. It's not easy. But what if you feel in a tap about the impact of Heineman?
Well, I think that says it all right there in terms of his impact. But I think why we see that stat jump out at us is he really stabilizes the lines, and you have confidence in rolling your four lines when they're well balanced and everybody's playing in their right positions in their right chairs, right? And I think that's the key. Like, yeah, we can nitpick and say, yeah, the second line is still not where it should be, and that would be valid, but if the top line is not clicking one night, at least now you have the third or even sometimes the fourth line that contributes. And I think Heineman brings brings that stability to not only the fourth line but to other players that then play at the right spots. And I mean, you can't speak enough for the importance of that kind of a role player on a team.
Yeah, I think I've mentioned this before. Like, so I don't want to downplay. Like, I think Heineman is awesome, and to me, one of the revelations of this year. And like, who knows, kind of how he'll evolve from here. But I'm with you, Entertap. Like, I think this is more an indication of what Montreal looks like when they're rolling four lines. I think I said on here that um, it's not necessarily that they were missing Heineman. They're I think that's the one of the rare things I disagreed this year with St. Louis is that for whatever reason they decided to start double shifting Suzuki, Caulfield with players on the fourth line and playing Pizzetta for like 3 or 4 minutes a game. And with the busy schedule that they had, and the crazy travel schedule they had, I think it emptied the tank for those players. Like, and we saw it in the last 7 games heading to the break. The team was just completely gassed. Like they had nothing in
Yeah.
the tank left, and the break couldn't come fast enough. So to me, I think that was the tactical mistake. There is like not to say that Montreal has anybody as good as Heineman to put into that role, but I think they did have other options, and they just chose not to like. And they brought in Harvey Pinard just for 1 game. They tried Beck for 1 game and sent him back, and then they just kept going back to putting Pizzetta in and double shifting Suzuki, Caulfield, and a couple of other guys on that fourth line, and it completely discombobulated their rhythm, and it
Yeah.
overtaxed some of their players. So to me, that's
But
one of the
Marco,
miscalculations. Yeah.
Would you say though that they felt like, I know the entire year we're using it as an evaluation year for certain key players, but it
Yeah.
also speaks to we're not quite there yet in terms of having the depth that we need. When
I
Heineman
don't.
is out of the lineup, don't you think that that spoke to the lack of their depth at that position in that
Well,
particular place?
to your point, I guess we'll never know because they didn't try, guys. They didn't really give them a
Yeah,
real try. So
that's
to me,
fair.
that just strengthens my argument that they mismanaged it because not only did they tire some of their key players, not only did they ruin the rhythm of rolling four lines, but they also wasted the opportunity of seeing, okay, what would it look like if we have Davidson or Roy or like Harvey Pinard or whatever, like whoever it is that you want to evaluate as a potential solution on that fourth line, knowing that you might lose Armia, knowing that you might lose some players from your bottom six. And they eventually did it with Beck, right? But they only gave him one game, and Beck is not really a winger, so it just really wasn't the right fit anyway. So again, one of the rare, like overall, I like a lot of the things that I think the management team more often than not gets it right. But to me, that was a tactical mistake in how they managed the season. Like yeah, okay, like we said, like Montreal, if they don't have high end talent like other teams, but they have lots of depth. Like to me, there are right now in Laval, there's at least three guys I think could come in and play 5 games for Montreal and not look bad and not hurt them, right? So to me, we didn't
And
really use our depth, and that's what was disappointing.
And do you think, Marco, coach, that perhaps that decision was based on the fact that they didn't want to maybe disrupt what Laval was going through in
Yeah.
terms of they were experiencing success? So to bring up, let's say, a Florian Jacki or a Davidson or a Tuck, it would disrupt them too much. Do you think that that could have played into the decision?
It's possible, like I hope there's a better reason than they just felt it was a good idea to play Pizzetta and double shift their guys. So if that's the real reason, they made the organizational decision to prioritize Laval over continuing the momentum. Like I would find that surprising, because again, it's an amazing opportunity. Like Montreal was on fire, guys, and everything was rolling. To me, like, yes, you want Laval to play well, but you can't. I wouldn't buy the argument that Davidson like I don't know, like for sure Jacki to like I think we haven't mentioned it enough. I think Devin mentioned it earlier in the chat. Like he had a couple other points tonight. Like Jacki's had a great season in Laval, right? And I think we were all willing to be very patient with him, and we all felt it was going to take him a while. But why didn't he get a shot? He's had a really nice season. Like, so for me, if the decision was to prioritize consistency in Laval versus keeping shit rolling. And guys, here's my one shit per episode. I'm getting it in right now. If they
Two.
prioritize, yeah, I always do it twice, but I say it once, like in one sentence. So if they prioritize doing that, I would question that prioritization because to me, yes, it's great to have Laval, but the experience that those players can get, it was a winning environment in Montreal. Things were going great. Great opportunity to try them. So to me, a bit of a missed opportunity. And certainly, if they end up missing the playoffs, which it looks like they'll even it's going to be hard for them to get there. To me, that was a critical error. So, in terms of how they managed the season, in my opinion.
And I would say the other thing too, coach, would be the fact that when they did eventually bring up some players, whether it was Mayu on defense or Beck up front, they only played him for a few minutes. I think Habinations brought that up earlier. Said, "What's the purpose of bringing him up if you're going to play him, 8, 9 minutes a game? You might as well stick with guys like Pizzetta."
Yeah, like Mayu played. Like Mayu had his time, but yeah, Beck didn't get a lot of minutes when he was up.
before we go to the shootout players, I want to bring you one specific players yesterday. Karela Trouble, Rantanen, wow. Um,
Yeah,
did you see he got beat by Lane Hudson in the corner?
Yeah, the way he beat him to the puck and stole it
That's,
from
that
him.
was
that's terrible.
It
it was
is.
a smart move but it was a smart move by Lane though. Like it was you can't take it away from Lane, but yeah, like Rantanen should be experienced enough that he needs to win that battle, but it shows you how creative Lane Hudson is in those puck battles, right? Sometimes you can't. You remember Gianta against Chara or Mike? Like he used to find ways to like almost go underneath Chara.
Yeah.
So sometimes that happens. Like smaller players can be very difficult to battle against because they can kind of like get inside you and like kind of like they're a different kind of like animal to fight with in the corner. But on the topic of Rantanen, like what a very awkward position Carolina is in right now, coach. Like, not only is he not playing well, I can't say I was super impressed with his Four Nations tournament. Especially Aho. Like, I think
Yeah.
like even more disturbing is Aho. Like, Aho was absolutely invisible during that tournament, and I didn't think he had a particularly couple good games since he's been back from the break either. But remember, like we talked about, sometimes like you hope for instant chemistry. Like, Aho and Rantanen are like the best of friends in the world, right? So I guess they were hoping that there was going to be instantaneous chemistry between those guys, but not seeing it, not seeing it so
But
far.
you know what though, Marco, and this helps to explain it. I think Rantanen just does not fit the model that Carolina plays, and that's
Yeah,
the biggest issue, right? With Colorado, he was allowed to freelance a little bit more. Of course, he had a line mate like McKinnon makes things exponentially greater for him. Um, but I mean, he helped out too. So it's not the player that I'm surprised with. It's the fact that Carolina took the chance to give away somebody like Nakas, uh, uh, and who was the other player
Drury,
that went with
Drury.
Drury? That's right, and
Yeah,
not guarantee that they could sign Rantanen in the long run. Number one, and number two, that they didn't see that maybe his style of play did not really fit the style that Carolina plays. So
yeah.
it'll
I
be
think
interesting to see what happens here. Like it would be horrible if this guy ends up walking. It would really set the team back.
what do you do? Like, well, so I agree with you. I think it was Martin, or I think it was Max Lapierre that made that point on. I don't know. I think I heard that too. Like, I think that's a good point. Like the
On the
stylistic fit with
Yeah,
Rantanen,
yeah,
right? Because he's not like because and we know the Hurricanes, they're like a puck pressure team, and Rantanen's more of like a puck possession guy. So I think that's a good, like, stylistically, is it a good fit with the team? So that's a good point. But guys, I don't know what you do there, because what, like, yes, you can retain on his salary. So just for you guys know, so we know that Colorado retain on his salary. So if I'm not mistaken, right now he's like a 4.5 million cap hit or something for Carolina. So they're allowed to, if they trade him, they can also retain 50%, which would make him like under 3 million, like 2.5 million or something like that. So pretty much any contender could make that work. So it would be a tremendous kind of like pickup. But at this stage, like, um, are you really going to get
it's
that
hard.
much back? Like, are you going to get the same amount worth that you're getting, like, versus Natchez? Like, I don't know. Like, it's definitely a mess. And imagine this, guys. The best scenario, I think, Frank Saravelli brought this up. Imagine if he gets traded to Vegas. Okay, because Vegas definitely has enough cap. If Carolina was to retain and trade him to Vegas for 2.5, guess who Colorado is playing in the first round? Vegas right now.
That's
If
right.
the playoffs started right now, so imagine if you're Colorado, you trade Rantanen, and he ends up back in the Western Conference, and you face him in the first round. Very interesting. I
It,
don't think we've ever seen a player of this stature. Like, potentially, you could argue at the very least a top 10 player in the NHL. Some people at some point say maybe he's top 5 player in the NHL, but at the very least top 10. Seeing one of the top 10 best players in the league traded twice in the period of 2 months, that would be unprecedented. So should be
that
fun to
the
watch.
only thing, in all fairness, the only thing we don't know out of this entire equation is this something that's been precipitated by Rantanen. Maybe Carolina is trying to extend him, but he's
Oh, they
saying,
are.
I want X amount of money, and I don't know, at whatever 13 million, 14, whatever the asking price from his agent is. For a winger, maybe if it was a centerman, I get it, but if a winger, it's tough to justify.
Is it Renaud Lavoie said Rantanen is not in shape?
Well, do
Really?
you remember that thing? Do you remember that thing with I think it was Lekkonen's dad, who's a play-by-play guy in Finland, and he had
Yes,
said something about Rantanen not, and this is when Rantanen and Lehkonen were playing both of the
Is it not
Avalanche.
Lekanen?
Yeah,
And yeah,
Lekkonen's father is a play-by-play guy in Finland, and he made some type of statement that Rantanen didn't come to shape into camp for Colorado. And then somebody asked Rantanen about it and told him that it was Lekkonen's dad,
yeah,
and
yeah,
that
yeah.
made it
I remember
be
that
pretty
story.
awkward. Yeah, so it wouldn't be
yeah,
the first time we hear that, but I don't know. Like, is it that he's not in shape, or is it again he's just not like a player that has a lot of pace? Like he's a strong body, like like puck protection skill guy,
very
right? That's why,
talented. Yeah,
yeah. But he's not somebody that plays with a lot of pace. And like we just talked about, Rob Brindamore's system, like the Carolina Hurricanes, you can argue. Some people say the reason that they don't really do well in the playoffs, it's very hard to play that style of game the whole year because it's really, really punitive on
right,
the players because you're pressuring the puck in all three zones all the time, pressure, pressure, pressure. So not everybody can kind of get to that pace. So again, like Entertap and I were saying, Coach, maybe it's stylistically, it's just wasn't the right fit. But and like Pierre Maguire talks about a lot, the eye test, right? Like the Carolina Hurricanes are a analytics driven. Like all teams use analytics, but they really use analytics. Like almost all of their decisions are made
overly,
based on analytics.
overly.
So
Yeah,
yeah, so maybe that was an interesting kind of decision based on the fact that hey, if you're using analytics, shouldn't you know that this type of player may not fit well stylistically in the style of play that you have?
yeah.
Stood out obscure at the office, Marco.
All right, I think we don't give this guy I think enough credit. Like it's kind of hidden in the open, right? Like he's our best player, and sometimes we're a little bit critical of him, but I think last night, like first star of the game, you got to give it to Suzuki. I think he not only was he productive and kind of had that power play goal and everything else, but he was part of that chess match, right? Like he played a lot of key minutes, just played a really strong, clean game, and really kind of set the tone for the team, I would say. So to me, I would say Suzuki, one of his better games, certainly his best game since the break, and probably his best game in the last like eight games. Because even the first game against Ottawa, he was okay, but he wasn't at his best. So to me, this is a really good signal. And you know what I loved is when he got the first star, I think at least two or three times when he was signing the lens there for RDS after, he said specifically to the crowd, we're still trying to get into the playoffs. These points are really important to us. These points are important. These points are important. We're trying to get into the playoffs. So I love the attitude, and I love that he seems still very, very focused on that. So to me, that really stood out, and a really good game for him. Obscure, I think I gave it away. I'm going to say Struble, just because I think that he's been a really, really good kind of compliment to Hudson. Again, not really that visible, similar to Carrier, right? Like we don't mention Carrier very much in the last couple games, but he was just there. He had the nice shot, that got deflected as well. But overall, like I really like what he was doing the last couple games, and good for him, because he had a pretty tough start to the year. So good for him to kind of continue, that little play here. And at the office, not for a bad reason, but listen, Beck's first time playing in the top six, I would bring Beck into the office and have a nice long talk with him and give him the feedback from what I saw, give him some encouragement. But I don't think there's anybody that I'm bringing into the office necessarily. I guess Jack, I did have two minor penalties, but to be honest, I didn't like the second one at all. I think it was a pretty weak call. So some people might say Jack Eye because he had two minor penalties. But to me, nobody to bring into the office for a bad reason. But I'm just checking in with Beck and letting him going over through some video, positive reinforcement, let him know how he did, and go from there. So those are my three picks.
Good pick. And after you can pick your same players.
Yeah, I mean, I'm gonna have to pivot a little bit. I had the exact same two in terms of stood out and obscure, and I totally agree with your assessment, Marco. But just to sort of be I guess a little bit different with the stood out, I'll go with Hudson. I thought you can tell that the break has really benefited him. He needed that sort of re-energization, and yesterday, like he just made smart play after smart play. I thought that he was visible the entire evening. They got 2 power play goals. He was very active as the defenseman that was quarterbacking it all. So I'll give it that to him. Obscure. Again, I agree, Struble, but just to be different, I'll go with Slavkovsky. Continuing in the same vein that he did in the previous game. We were talking about it's great that he can do that. Now, can he do it consistently? So, I mean, 2 games is not yet consistent, but it's definitely a step in the right direction. And you're just seeing a different look in his eyes, as you were saying earlier, Marco. And that's sort of what drives a player, that inner fire, and that's what you have to have on a nightly basis. So I'll give that to Slavkovsky. At the office, I mean, it's hard to send anybody down when you've executed a game plan as well as Montreal did yesterday against a very good team. But
Yeah.
if anything, I would maybe send down Savard just yesterday. Like, I mean, he wasn't horrible or anything, but again, you can see that his pace has slowed down a little bit. He's not as mobile as he used to be, and just for that reason, I'll send him to the office.
What are you going to tell him in the office? You're slow? You're bringing him into the office to tell him he's slow?
Yeah, speed up, buddy.
That's a terrible idea.
Have you tried
David,
changing skates?
I just wanted to tell you, you're looking pretty slow out there, buddy.
Yeah.
Yeah, I
Coach?
don't bring anybody at the office, honestly. At that one over there for sure. So, because you pick at some place, I think we go with Patrick Lenny. I was really
Yeah.
criticized him the last month. Maybe
Yeah.
with right reason, but one goal to assist, back-to-back goal now for game.
Yeah.
It was, so for him, it's pretty good to see that. But this is a kind of player where you have you know, to understand is the guy he had no flash. Sometimes he disappear and then he appear at the right time, and that's where he is. But that's the situation for Patrick Lanny. Obscure, just because I want him to. He did bounce back from a bad game Friday, Saturday. Mike Madison. I think yesterday have a really good game overall. Then he gets like he have a bad game Saturday, but I think overall his game yesterday, it was pretty good. What a good shot he did, and then a big save of Anderson with a glove. If you remember, that shot was a great pass, tic-tac-toe between Caulfield, Sakowski, Zuski to Madison. I think it was, and Madison no gave away puck. Everything skated the way he did yesterday is pretty good. So I stood out. I just tried to find someone like point on the board, everything like that. So I think it'll be good. But you have to give credit for Jekai and Swabot yesterday too about that. And I would say I think another player I can mention there is Emil Heineman. I think Heineman have also as an absolute player. Now no point on the board, but again, a very good game overall. So that's what we got on that one for the Montreal Canadiens. For this one, because we have like 9:40 there, I'm going to go a little bit more quicker for around what we got for every one of you. Montreal Canadiens are 24 more game. Stay in the mix, possible a playoff spot. And I'll talk about we are family. But question for you, for both of you and the people in the chat. Stay together or not? My point behind that is this part. What kind of message do you give to the players in the locker room if you trade Jake Evans, David Savard, Joel Armia at the traded line?
Yeah.
How you feel about that, Marko?
Coach, you read my mind. Like, I think it's a terrible message to send, right? Like, again, like I think as a management team, you have to do the cost benefit analysis of is what we're getting back for moving those players good enough to disrupt what we have on the ice right now and the message that it sends. And on the reports that we're hearing about maybe Savard gets you a 4th-round pick, maybe Evans gets you a 2nd-round pick, the answer is no. Based on those returns, if that's all you're getting back, to me, even if Montreal stays at 5 points, guys, we can't forget, like, Montreal still has 2 games against the Ottawa Senators this year, right? They still have 1 game against Detroit. They still have 1 game against Boston. They have 1 game against the Islanders. They have 1 game against the Rangers. So I won't say that Montreal has its fate in its own hands, but it's not completely out of its hands either. So to me, like, I get it. The objectives of the players in the dressing room and the coach are going to be a little bit different and short term than the overall management team. The management team, of course, has to have a larger, longer term view of what's best for the team, right? But sometimes you have to, like I said, like, is it bad asset management? Like, in the theoretical sense of the word, yes. But overall, is it bad management to move those players, even though you lose them for nothing? The answer is also yes. So I think you're 100% right. Like, I think the players have earned, even though they had a really tough stretch. Again, my theory is that a little bit of mismanagement, they overused some of their players. They had everybody had a condensed schedule and a tough schedule, but Montreal did have a lot of travel, probably a little bit more than some of the other teams in the East. So they definitely overstressed their assets a little bit, and they had a really tough last 7 games before the break. But now they're recharged. They're looking good. Just let them ride, man. Just let it ride. See what happens. It's a great experience for them to play some meaningful games. Like we said, we get to evaluate everybody that's there, and who knows? Maybe you're not able maybe you're not able to kind of sign Jake Evans, and you just continue to talk with him and talk with his agent. Let's say Jake Evans, has a really strong, and Montreal makes it into the playoffs. Like, maybe Jake Evans is willing to take a little bit less money because he really wants to stay. Like, there's no rush, guys. Like, again, what you're getting back for those guys isn't a game changer, in my opinion, unless you're really able to package those guys together and get something. But it's not looking like think about it, guys. The likelihood that a contending team is going to be able to take on, because Montreal only has 1 retention slot, so you can't retain on both Armia and Evans, right? Excuse me. Oh, that was a good one. So it's going to be very hard for them to retain on both those guys. They can't. So which teams are going to be able to take on both Armia and Evans? Like, you're not going to have a lot of competing teams that are going to be able to do that. So, Coach, I don't know if you agree with me. Maybe that's why you brought it up. But Entertap, what do you think, man? Like, is it better to just keep them together? And
Well, you bring up some valid points. I doubt that they'll try to get rid of all 4, like, unless the returns for all 4 are just out of this world. In terms of what they might plan to do, is I think 2 out of the 4 might go. If, again, the return is there, like, to give them away and get a 3rd or a 4th pick, I totally agree. It sends the wrong message to the players. Players aren't stupid; they see, right? But if somehow you get either a player that can come in now and starts to fit in because they're a prospect and starts to fit in with the young group that we have now, and help solidify, like, even if you have to throw might be, then it's something that they need to explore. It's part of what their job is as a GM. Like, you have to entertain calls. You have to see if it fits your model as you move forward. And if they can do it, by all means, the players will realize, hey, yeah, we've made a move this year, and now, yeah, you hate to see them go. Like, we hated to see Toffoli go. We hated to see Monahan go. We hated to see Chirac go for different reasons because he was so close with a lot of the players. But at the end of the day, it's a business, and Hughes has to do what's best for the team. So I can see one or two of the players definitely being traded at the trade deadline time. But I think he's also looking to sort of, create a situation where he's thinking outside the box. It's not just going to be, well, give me picks, because that doesn't really service us well right now, unless it's a first and it's a half decent one. And you're not going to get a half decent first round pick because it's teams that are competing for the cup that are obviously with those picks offering it. So I think if he can get some kind of prospect in return, a team that's willing to do that, then he might consider it. He might just trade
When you
two of
talk
them
about
and maybe.
prospect, you talk about what kind of prospect?
Well, if you're going to put, for example, let's suppose, again, I'm not going to get into the dynamics of it, but if you were to put together, let's say, both Armia and Evans, and you throw a pick or two in there as well, maybe even one of your prospects that you feel is not going to eventually be on the team because there's not room for him, then that might get you a low level A prospect in return. Because a team that has that kind of prospect and is close to winning the cup isn't thinking necessarily, okay, this guy's going to help me down the road. I need to win today. I'm in the playoffs. I know I'm very close. All I need is some depth that an Armia and an Evans can go far in terms of establishing that for your team. And so
So you
they
get in
might just
return
play
in our
that role.
top a bottom six forward or a third pairing defenseman.
Or I would say a middle six forward prospect.
You're not going to get that for Evans and
No,
Evans
you
and
might have to
so
sweeten it up, coach.
okay.
You might
So
have to
let's
sweeten it
let's
up.
finishing that, or they can get a first round pick,
Yeah,
right?
yeah, yeah.
But with what they have already,
I was just going to say the same thing. Yeah,
what you need more? Like that
exactly.
players
Like
coming
Montreal
now.
is
We
full.
already have Michael Edge, Demidov, we have Beck, we have Kapanen, we have Jekai, we have Mayu, we have Rebecca, we have Fowler, we have Engstrom, we have so many.
Thor.
Is it not more important for the Montreal Canadiens to stay together and to play meaningful game to the end of the season and to stay in the race and the mix over, excuse me, over a prospect or a first round pick where we don't know if it could happen. We already have, they have. For me, I think for the culture, for the player want to sit together, we have Alexandre Carrier said today, Kent Hughes, you would prefer to see the keep together all the way to the end. And at the end of the day, you're just losing Jake Evan and Christian Dvorak. It's not a matter. Why to trade David Savard for a four-round pick or a third-round pick to really need what we need? And that would bring my next subject for Marko and Artap. And we stay. You can answer to my question, but look what we have: Dimitrov, Fowler, Edge, Beck, Mayu, Rebecca, Engstrom, Jekai, Kapanen, Tobesh. We don't need more. We already
Well,
have.
the only one that could possibly be a centerman there is Hage. And that's the area that concerns me, because if Doc doesn't work out, and right now it doesn't look, he looks better as a winger than he does as centerman. That
But
means we have a huge gap at 2C.
not,
Well, yeah,
but
but
in
you're
Artap,
not resolving.
you can make
You're not resolving that
you,
with an Evans trade. You know, like
you can
you're not
trade
fixing.
Oh
Mayu
no.
to get a second center. You have enough there to pick what you don't have. I don't think so. Montreal need more anymore. I think they already have everything to go farther deep into the future. I think for me, you keep the team together, go through the process to the end, and after that, if they don't sign anybody, whatever they sign, but I think they have already they're going to select another two pick and the first round pick, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, whatever they're going to be. I don't think so. I think for me, see what they have right now and play a lot of meaningful game and until to the end. I would not trade for Jake Evan and Joel Armia right now. I think it's more important for the culture of the team and the player want to get that. The player want to go that direction right now. They want to stay together. I don't know how you feel about that, Marco.
Yeah, no, I don't totally disagree with it, Coach. I totally get what you're saying, and it's very valid. I'm just saying sometimes you have to make decisions that are best for the team, right? I don't know. They hated to give away Toffoli. They hated to give away Monahan twice. Uh, but in the end, they got valuable assets that now are they're that are on that list that you have there and further in their organization. So, I mean, how did Heineman get here? Through one of those types of trades. I get it. It was easier when they were in the early stages of the rebuild because you're stripping it down to its studs and just keeping the ones that maybe Bergeron had brought in already that were already here. But there comes a point where you have to sort of say, okay, so what am I going to do? Am I going to just for the sake of what 20, 24, 25 games that they have left? I'm going to keep Evans here so that we can maybe jump from let's say 10th from the bottom to 12th from the bottom, because eventually that's what's going to happen. I mean, as much as I would love to see them go on a 8 to 10 game run, it's realistically it's not going to happen. You have way too many teams ahead of you, so why not make sure you get a lower pick? And again, I'm not suggesting tanking here. They have to continue to play the
That's
way
what
they
it
do.
is. That's what you're
But it
doing.
hap-
Like you're
but that's an organic thing that's happening.
well,
But
no,
you
because you're
might you
it's
might
no
get a
longer
player you
it's no
might get a
longer
player in
organic.
return, Marco, that can fill in at least. That so you're not gonna fall that far down the road, but in the standings. So I
It's
don't
no
know.
longer it's no longer organic if you're making decisions to engineer them being not as good. By definition, that is making decisions to make your team less good, right? So to me it's and that's the message that you're sending to your locker room. Hey guys, you had a great run. We've liked everything you did, and we said we wanted to be in the mix, but you know what, we need another second round pick. That's a terrible
No,
message to send.
but that's not your primary goal. What I'm saying is you're not
Well,
gonna
that's what
necessarily make the
it is.
playoffs this year, but in making that kind of trade, suppose you do get a half decent prospect in return,
You won't
right?
though.
From I
That's what
I
I
don't
want
know.
to say. Well, no, because okay, so if you're trading Evans or even if you're packaging it, like no team is giving up a blue chip prospect, for those kinds of players, even if you start packaging it, because obviously they're not interested in futures. They're interested in getting better right now, right? Montreal, basically all they have is support players that they're willing to give up or futures, right? So ultimately, if you're getting a prospect back in that kind of deal for Evans or Mia or whatever you're moving, it's going to be somebody comparable. Let's say they're lucky, they may get another Beck. Maybe they get another Beck, somebody that is likely going to play in your bottom nine. And as you pointed out, Montreal's biggest hole is second line center and potentially top right-handed defenseman. You're not going to solve that with an Evans trade or with a package surrounding an Evans trade. So to me, that's an off-season thing. Or if you want to have a
Maybe.
different
Yeah,
trade,
that's fair.
right? So,
That's
yeah,
fair. I
so
c I can see that.
you can't conflate just keeping the band together and keeping them together and keeping the assets and not adding more assets doesn't mean that you go into the next season status quo. And that's just to answer Nicholas's question. What Coach and I are saying, Nicholas, is not that we start the season with status quo. We finish the season status quo. You reward the team and say, hey, let's see what you guys can do. You've earned the opportunity for us not to sell. We know we're not going to get that much back anyways. It's not going to move the needle tremendously either way. And then in the off season, you've had the opportunity to evaluate everybody that you have. You have a much better idea of what you need to take that next step, and then you address that at the draft or the summer, right? So we
You
all
know?
agree that Montreal needs a
In
second
all
line center.
fairness, though, Marco, you're going to be talking about different kinds of packages in the off season than you will right now, right?
Sure.
What ends up happening if you're going to keep them together, and again, I see valid reason for that, but you're going to also lose them because they're going to head off to UFA.
Yeah. That's fine.
status. So you have to swallow that pill if that's
But
the
those
case.
but those assets, like the ones we're talking about right now, those aren't the ones that you're going to be like. Those aren't the assets you're going to need to land a second line center, unless you're
Yeah,
unless you're getting so. Like to me, they're two totally different things. Like it has nothing to do with Evans, Armia, Savard. Like those, like even if you add a pick, you're not getting, like a second line, like a young 21-year-old. You're not getting McTavish or somebody like that from Anaheim for Jake Evans and Army. Like it's just not going to happen. You're not getting St. Louis. Like there's guys that I've talked about like all over the league, right? Like how many young early 20 centers that are ready to come play in the NHL are available? Not many, right? So that's a big trade. That's like a big move. That's not going to involve little pieces like we're talking about, right? It's not, you're not trading like 8 different assets for one asset to another team. That's not likely to happen. So to me, it's completely separate. Just let them kind of write it out, reward the team, give them their flowers, give them the chance. And then this summer, Montreal has tons of assets, not just the players we see here, but like you mentioned, Entertap, like so many picks in the first 3 rounds this year. Like Kent Hughes is coming to the poker table with really good cards in his hand, right? So
okay,
Montreal is
so
very.
are you just to finish it off, Coach and Marco? Are you guys predicting any trades at all?
I like I said, like some people were saying like 4 or 5 trades. I think Coach originally
No,
predicted like
no.
4 or 5 trades. I at the very most I thought it was going to be 2, but based on what we're
Yeah,
seeing in the marketplace and what we're hearing, I don't think, like, unless they can, because again, Ken Hughes wants to package them together. I don't think that's likely to happen. So I won't be shocked and disappointed if nothing happens. But if they do end up
agreed.
moving Armia and Evans, it better be good. They better get something interesting, because the only scenario, I'll tell you this, the only scenario where I won't be happy is if they trade Evans and Armia and it's just the type of asset that you're describing. Like a B level prospect that maybe one day is going to play in your bottom 6. I won't be happy. I don't think many fans will be happy either, because what is that? How is that moving the needle for Montreal in any way whatsoever? I don't think it is. Like I know some people, they just don't
Yeah, yeah,
like losing players for nothing, but you can't always look at it that way, right? Sometimes letting a player walk and getting nothing for him, the value that you're getting in another way, which in what Coach and I are saying is valuable experience, playing good games down the stretch and showing the feeling that you're
yeah.
giving the team by showing them that you believe in them and that you're rewarding them. Those are, yes, you're not getting assets back, but in a way you're still getting something back, which is goodwill with the players that are going to be there in the future, right? So to me, it's, you're still getting something back.
Coach, do you think any trades?
I no clue what you just said, both of you. I'm just
Do
chatting
you
with
think?
N26A2, and so
Do you think do you think there'll be any trades at all from Hughes?
I don't say you have any trade. My point, I think the benefit for the Montreal is not make any trade. That's what I'm thinking about that. I think the culture and the one you want to give to the player, the coaching staff, said, you know what, you deserve to try a chance to stay to play meaningful game, like they was said that at the beginning of the season. This is their
Mhm.
goal, a purpose about that. At least they get something huge in return of Amir Evans together, Marco. I don't think they would be willing to do any other things about that. When I say huge, it's like a first one pick or something else, everything like that. If not, for them, it would be more benefit to go all the way to the end with the team they have together. And the player wanted. And
Yeah.
I think that's what I feel it will happening. Now, Marco and Artep, imagine they lost San Jose, they lost Buffalo. That's another conversation could happen next week, right?
No, I don't think though. See, that's where I disagree with you, Coach. Like I
If
said in.
Montreal become a 9 or 11 point Marco or the playoff, I think it will happen. I think because it will be more acceptable for the players to go that way. Marco.
Yeah, but like I said, I don't think like as a management team, you're not making decisions on like 1 or 2 game segments. Like I said off the top of the show, I
It's
think
not about 1 or 2 games, Marco. It's about where they at in the standing.
I get it, but I think they've already made their decision, right? So they've already made their analysis, and I don't know this. I'm not reporting this as a fact, right? But I would be shocked if during the Four Nations break they all sat down, they analyzed kind of where they are. Okay, so here's we are now. I think they have a plan, right? So I think they know exactly what they would want for a trade. And if they don't get it, they're just going to keep them, right? And we're hearing reports of what it is that they would want, which is a third first round pick, or they want to combine it for a really good young player that can come play in their team and be part of the longer term solution, right? So that's what they want. If they don't get that, coach, here's my question to you, coach.
Yeah.
Okay. So, and I asked this to Enertap. If Montreal trades Evans or Armia for like a second round or for a third round pick or a second round pick or a B level prospect, as a fan, like not as an analyst, as a fan, would you be upset?
No, I personally wouldn't, because first of all, we can't say necessarily with any certainty what that either high level B prospect or low level A prospect may turn out to be, and we have ample anecdotal reports, that we've seen in the past of players that were selected, late first, early second, mid second, that have come on and been. If you were to redo the draft now, they would be much higher than they were. Case in point, Lane Hudson. Um, so I, I wouldn't be, I wouldn't be disappointed. I'd say they obviously looked into it and weighed everything out, and they felt that this was the best thing for the team at this time. I mean, I'd hate to lose, and I think Hughes is of this mindset as well. He hates to lose any of his assets for nothing. So if you let
Yeah.
Evans walk, you let Armia walk at the end. Yeah, you can make the argument. Okay, no big loss because of where they play in the lineup.
That's not
But
the argument I'm making, though. That's not the argument I'm making. So again, the argument I'm making is that on paper, yes, you could say it's bad asset management because you're letting an asset go away for nothing. But
yes,
sometimes the value that you're getting isn't necessarily just about an asset that you're getting by keeping it or by so yes,
you're
you're
talking
not
about
getting
the intangible that
exactly,
you get from keeping them. Yeah, yeah.
exactly,
I don't
exactly.
I don't disagree with that part, but I think they're going to weigh it out. Like from everything I'm hearing as well. And again, you don't know which sources to sort of validate it not, but Hughes is saying, "Don't call me if the offer for Evans isn't at least a second."
A second round pick. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. All right, coach. I think we're ready to move on.
Here we go. 10:05 about that. Before we move on, I will hit right away the clash. I think the clash is fun, and I think tonight you have a lot of great subjects to talk about. So I think we appreciate a lot everyone to be a part of the show. New people pop up. Colette, Hacham, Al, also GF, also Zev Lacab, Nicolas de Gobi Bono, Maurice. Have a good day. And don't forget, everybody, to click on the like. So it's time for the clash, everyone. Here we go, Marco and our tap on the clash.
Sure, let's do it.
Marco, Rantanen, trade again.
If I had to bet, I'm going to say not at all. Like, I just don't see. What I would consider this is if you have a handful of sand and then you try to hand over that handful of sand to another person, there's so much sand that's like falling in between your fingers. There's no way to transfer that amount in a clean way. So I just don't think that Carolina can get back the value that they've already given out in this trade if they were to retrade him right now. To me, you just have to kind of write it out. You've made your decision to go out and spend assets to get this guy. You just need to make it work. I think you would just look like a completely bipolar organization. You go trade for a guy, you trade all these important assets, you wait 2 weeks.
Super chat.
Crazy.
Can we do it right now?
Let's do it.
Let's do it. We can do it. Here we go. Super chat, Maurice Robillard. Merci beaucoup, mon Maurice. He did it again. Maurice Robillard, $5 super chat. We appreciate all the super chat we got every night. All of you did it for the Hockey Nation Show. Merci beaucoup, mon Maurice, mon mot. Have a good night, mon mot. Good day. I apologize. So, Retten.
Not at all for me, Coach. You gotta, you made your bed, now lie in it. Like I don't think, I just can't imagine that a management team would do something like that. So I think that they're gonna try to make it work and really take a run. As a matter of fact, I think if I'm Carolina at this point, I'm adding other pieces. I'm like, okay, so things aren't working. We're kind of all in this time here. You add maybe another piece and you go for it. Because I don't think there's any going back at this point.
I'm going to say that they're not going to make another mistake, Marco. They've already realized that maybe he doesn't fit their style, and to take the risk that that you're going to dish out all sorts of money to get Rantanen. That's not what Carolina does. Their ownership is very stingy when it comes to the contract renegotiations, and I don't think that they're going to throw away like $13 million, which is, I think, the minimum that it may take to sign him up. He doesn't fit the system, and they can't risk. The worst thing they can do, on top of what they've already done, is let this guy walk at the end, just to hang on here. And so I would say absolutely they're going to try to get whatever they can out of this, because I don't think they're going to budge and say, okay, I'll sign on for $11 million. It's not going to happen.
No, but so I guess we're having the same debate about asset management, right? But at this stage, like they made this move to win a Stanley Cup, right? So at this stage, like even if they're not confident they can re-sign him. At the worst case, at least you got rid of, because Natchez was probably going to get $9 million on his next deal after next year. So if Rantanen moves, and it didn't work out, then you have a whole bunch of, you can weaponize your cap space and do something else, right? So even if you can't sign him, all I'm saying is that if you trade him again, okay, you're probably not going to get a player that's going to be nearly as helpful to help you win a cup this year, right? And you lost all those assets. So for me, at least try to win this year, try to make it work. Add another piece if you have to really give yourself the best chance to win. And if he walks away, he walks away. At least you have a lot of cap space to roll with, right?
That's a big gamble. Yeah. And if they sign him and for let's say 7-8 years, and they realize that he doesn't fit their system, man, that's a really bad contract. Yep. So I'm going to go with absolutely. I think they're going to try to do something.
That would be insane if they do that. Crazy.
Absolutely. They were going to trade him because the reason behind that, he doesn't want to sign in Carolina. He's looking for 8 years.
That's the other thing. Yeah.
And he's looking for $12.5 million. And they have the worst owners in NHL.
Absolutely.
Ask Jake Gensel last year how his negotiation went.
They learned from that. That's the reason I go absolutely, because of Jake wants out. Anyhow, enough that. Hughes make 3 trade a plus at the trade deadline.
I say no. I don't think that he's going to make 3. I mean, at most, I can see 2, as I was sort of alluding to before. So I'm going to go not at all.
Yeah, we've talked about this throughout the last couple of segments. Not at all. Like, I won't be shocked if they have 0 trades. But realistically, I'd say maybe like 2 could happen. But no, I would be shocked if it's more than 3 trades. Shocked.
Would you be surprised? Would you be surprised, Coach, if it was a player that we haven't even talked about, i.e., Doc?
I would be surprised. Yeah,
Yeah, me too.
it's not really the time. Like those kinds of trades, like hockey trades. There's not as many of those at the deadline, right? It's really
Yeah,
primarily teams looking to gear up. So those are things you see more in the offseason at the draft.
summer. Yeah, yeah.
And 26, I agree with you about that one. Marco, Boston trade Brett Marchand.
Yeah, that's an interesting one for sure. I don't think so. Like Don Sweeney definitely kind of has been a bit wishy-washy about it a little bit in some of his comments. But at the end of the day, I think that they're going to figure out something to keep him there. I just don't see. I don't see Boston being in a position like I think they're still trying to protect their jobs. To be honest, like if I'm Cam Neely and Don Sweeney after this year, I'd be a little bit nervous. So I don't think it would be a good look for them to move Marchand either. So I don't think that would help them. So I'm going to say not at all. I think they'll work out something with Marchand. He's taken a lot of like hometown discounts to stay there in the past, so he might do that again.
Enough talk.
I say it's about a year too late. I think that this is maybe even 2 years too late. Ever since Krejci and Bergeron announced that they were going to be retiring, this is something they should have considered. Because if you look at Boston's organization right now, there's not much in the cupboards in terms of either picks or prospects in their system. They got a couple, but it's not plentiful, and it's going to take them quite a while to sort of restock and rebuild. Uh, I don't even think they're in a position to retool here because right now trading Marchand is not going to get you much at trade deadline time. I agree that if they were to do it maybe over the summer, he could bring in a little bit more, but it's a little bit too late right now. So I'm going to go with not at all.
You're not consistent with your asset management philosophy, Enertap.
Yes, just a different team though. Their
Okay.
blueprint is quite different than ours. They have to strip things down, whereas we're going the opposite direction.
And
In
the
all
funny thing
fairness.
about that, like Boston is only 2 points behind the wild spot.
Yeah, I think their goal, like the big thing with them, coach, is their goaltending for the last couple of years has maybe artificially made them a little bit more successful than they should have been. And this year, the
Yeah.
goaltending's been a little like it hasn't been bad. It's he definitely his training camp didn't help, but it's definitely not as been at the same level as past years. So if you look at their goals against and their goals for, it's pretty similar to other years. Just their goaltending has kind of come down a little bit more to where
And
to more
in
we
all
gather.
fairness, they mishandled the whole Swayman thing and getting rid of Allmark first and
Yeah,
painting themselves in a corner. So there's
yeah,
probably even a bit of resentment still there, even though he did sign with Boston. So
yeah.
that could explain why he's having a poor year.
All right.
Coach,
Coach,
Um,
what do you think? Is he going?
it's
Lease?
not
Go to
it's
the
not
lease.
about who is willing to get Brett Marchand. That's my biggest question about that one. It's not
I think a
about
lot
the
of teams.
Boston trade him. It's about what he get in return. Um,
yes, that's the
I think
key.
he would bring a first round pick and a third round
Oh,
pick, and
Yeah.
Boston are willing about that. And if they know McKinboy is going to be out for long term, they last laying home. That shall be hard. If they have a possibility to increasing the asset, I think they could be trade.
we shall see.
Ovechkin reached Gretzky this season.
Yes,
I'm going to say
absolutely.
absolutely. Like it's like I said, it's one of the like I was just watching this YouTube video and it goes through like what is arguably the best year in hockey, and this video makes the claim that the best year in hockey was 92-93. And as Habs fans we probably agree, but there's all these other reasons why they felt 92-93. There's It was the year Lindros got traded from the Nordiques. Manon Réon played in her first game as a woman in hockey. There was like all these crazy things that happened in the 92-93 season. So this season might be one of those seasons, guys. Like maybe it's just one of those special seasons. We had four nations face off. Maybe we have Ovi reaching Gretzky. So I'm going to say absolutely. This year, maybe it's just going to be a special year with lots of cool things that happen. So I'm going to say absolutely.
Yeah, I agree. I think he's on a real momentum now, and the team is doing very well. They're gonna as we get closer to it, and we're pretty close right now. It's obvious that they're gonna center things around him in order to get it established now. And as Luciano and I have predicted, I could see Washington and Winnipeg in the finals.
When he going to score a tie Wayne Gretzky?
Eeny, meeny, miny, mo.
So he's got 12. He's got 12 goals left to get right to beat the
Yep.
record.
No,
Okay, so
tie.
oh no, I think it's 12 to beat.
12.
12 or 13? Oh, I thought it was 13. Okay.
Yeah.
He scored yesterday. That's the reason I said that. I could be wrong, but I think it is. You have 24 games to go. Scratch the
Yeah.
game again. San Jose.
I think the best story for the NHL would be April 17th against Pittsburgh. Like that would be, last game of the season against Sid, and Sid's in the house, Gretzky's in the house. Like in terms if you're writing the script for what it would be, that would be awesome, a great story. I think you probably do it a bit before, right? But against Carolina wouldn't be bad either. Another team that he has some history with. But I think that would be the best story, like the most dramatic one, right at the final game of the season against the Pens would be cool.
And after that,
Might happen earlier. I'm eyeing one of those Columbus games, either April 12th or April 13th. I think let's go with lucky 13. I think that would be appropriate. April 13th.
right, and after he's cheating already, and Marko, he said he have two chances on the one. He named a thing with two. So I'm going with again a Carolina Hurricane and after they play April 2 and April 10. So
You're cheating too. Okay, all right.
Oh, look who's cheating.
so that one. But it was just an extra that one. Marko and after not Marko. Well, sorry about that. Sakiski more point que Shane Wright at the end of the year. 34 versus 32.
Okay, so Shane Wright's up by 2 points right now.
Yeah.
So I'm going to say not at all. I think it's going to be close, but I think overall I think Slav is playing with better quality teammates, and I think Seattle might also be sellers. So I don't think they're going to be really motivated down the stretch, but it's going to be close. Like I don't think it's going to be a huge gap. But with how Slav is kind of heating up a little bit right now, and the minutes he gets on the power play, playing with Suzuki and Caulfield, I'll give him a slight edge, but it's going to be close.
So you're saying absolutely?
Yeah, Slav more points than Wright. Absolutely.
Yeah. I would agree. Where's Rick Bengal tonight? We've been having this conversation all year long, ever since they've been drafted, and I definitely, as a matter of fact, I'll say I'll guarantee it.
Oh,
absolutely.
Geez.
Coach?
Wow.
Because the what happening at the end.
Seattle.
I think I would go with right about that one because I think the Kraken is going down and they maybe trade a couple of players to Kraken. So I would go with Shane Wright. Yeah, more time at the end. But it would be very close. It would be very, very close because Sakiski is going to have is going to get also a lot of time.
His points.
Coach, can I ask you guys a bonus clash question just based off the last one?
We have one more.
Yeah, but can I insert a surprise clash question for you and Entertop based on that
ahead.
one? Okay, so Montreal should trade for Matt Beniers, absolutely or not at all?
They trade for?
Matt
Matt
Benier.
Beniers,
So,
Matty
as you
Beniers.
know, Matt Beniers is kind of like struggling a little bit in Seattle. Seattle's kind of spinning their wheels. They might be looking to do something a little bit different. Montreal should take a chance and trade for Matt Beniers. Absolutely, or not at all.
I'm going to add one more thing about that. I would trade Logan Mailloux for him.
Well, that can be your answer. Absolutely. And
Yep.
so you would trade Mayu. Okay.
Yep.
Enter top.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, if you can try to get somebody like a Matty Beniers, that would go a long way in addressing that. I would say either you can say first or second center in this case. I still
He's
think
struggling.
Suzuki's.
Have
Yeah,
you
he's
seen his
struggling,
numbers?
but
He's
it's normal. It's normal though, Marco. A
not
lot of
just this
players
year,
go through.
but last year too. Like he didn't have a good year last year at all.
I thought he had a decent year last year, but
Oh,
wasn't he injured for a while?
a little bit, but like basically
Yeah,
since he signed his deal, he hasn't been very good, right? But again, it's one of those things. Is he not good because he's in Seattle? Or is he not what a lot of people thought? That's the.
yeah. I
I
think
think it would be.
I think he would fit better in Montreal, and I think he does have the talent that he could help this team. If the price is right, like it isn't something crazy that they're asking for, I would definitely entertain it.
Well, they're going to want something substantial in return, right? Like if you're, that is
Yeah,
their second overall pick from 4 years ago. So, but that's the kind of player that that those are
could
two
help.
teams that might be good trade partners, right? Like Seattle needs to do something because their rebuild isn't going super well either.
And la final one. Montreal Canadiens are going to be 3 points or less for the wild spot March 7 at the trade deadline.
3 points or less. I'll let you do that first, Senator.
Yeah, I'll say not at all. As much as I would love for them to be there, I don't think it happens. I think it'll be 5 or more.
Yeah, it's a lot of 3-point games out there, coach. It's I don't think they play any of those teams that they're battling against. So they're playing Buffalo, but they're not really competing against them. They're playing they're not playing Ottawa or the Rangers or any teams like that. So I don't think like right now it's just about kind of like staying in the mix. And so I don't think they're gonna be 3 points. It's just so hard. Like last night, right? They win, and then all the other teams, including Columbus, wins, and like Boston gets a point in overtime by going overtime. So I don't think they're gonna get that close just by March 7th.
Yeah, absolutely about that. It would be interesting. We have about 3, 4 minutes before we go. I have a couple of things. Just want to talk about this very quickly. You don't have to make comments, but and also Laval Rocket won today 5-4. The game was 11 o'clock a.m. today. Jekai and Farrell, 2 more points. They
Jack,
are already on fire, both of them right now. Good for them.
Farewell.
For Florent Jekai, returned that 17 goal, I believe, or 15 goal for Jekai. Farrell, 12
that's
goals.
really
Farrell is honestly the last 3 weeks is like crazy about that. So good
using his
again, the
speed.
Marlins. So
He's
it's another team
he's
in the
really
division.
he's raising his value for a possible trade chip, and I think that would be a
Maybe.
good one because I just don't see him in Montreal. But you know,
Yeah.
we'll see.
Like I don't think he'll bring a lot, but he's definitely using his speed a lot more effectively.
Yeah,
And that's kind of his big thing is using his feet. So definitely good progress there. But Jack Eye to me, guys, like a little bit ahead of schedule of where I thought he was going to be, adapting his game, and really good. Like I didn't think he was like I haven't seen like. Do we know what his face-offs are at, Jack Eye?
Face off.
I think it's above 50.
Okay.
Good question. I
I
have to
think I
look
think
about
so.
that. The only time we can have with that. Can you tell us what you expect for the Montreal against San Jose and Buffalo, Marco?
Yeah, like interesting question here, guys. Also, is do you start Dobesh in any of these games? Dobesh kind of struggling. Like he hasn't played a lot of games. So to me, I think you have to get him in here. Like you're going to need Dobesh to play some games for you down the stretch. So the question is, in theory, your instinct would be to play him against a weaker team, but it seems like he's had the most success against kind of some of the harder challenges, right? So if it was me, I would go with Monty against San Jose, ride the hot hand. He just had the shutout, and then come in with Dobesh against Buffalo. But we'll see how that plays out. They need 4 points here, guys. They really, really need 4 points if they want to stay in the mix. So usually I'm very, very, I try to kind of reverse jinx it and try not to jinx it, and I am a little bit more conservative, but I'm going to say 4 points. They're going to get 4 points out of these games.
Yeah, I would go a step further and say they need the next 6 points because they play Buffalo back to back.
Yeah, exactly.
So, or at least 5, right, out of the whole thing. And I think it's doable. Maybe not 6, but close to that. And I agree with you. I think they'll split both Monty and Dobesh between these 2 games.
Obviously, they don't give us the face off, Marco. So I apologize for that one over there.
That's okay.
Okay.
On that one. Tyler Top play, guys, right now. So you can watch Tyler Top when you finish the show tonight. I'll go with they play in Buffalo, but they beat Buffalo. So I would go with 4 points for the Montreal Canadiens. I think they're going to be good. They have to go with 4 points anyway if they want to stay on that one for sure. We have other things to talk about this, but we want to respect the time for everyone tonight. And I'll be back tomorrow night for the Hockey Nation Live show. We're going to do the game at Montreal and Laval and San Jose Sharks. But before we leave, tomorrow night, Marco, what are you looking for? Something specific for the Montreal Canadiens against San Jose Sharks? Or the fact you go to watching Celebrity, another matchup. Calder Trophy match, Celebrity versus Hudson.
Yeah. Coach, I'll be looking to see, can Montreal maintain their level of intensity and discipline against, kind of like an easier game, like it's a trap game, right? So let's make sure that we have the same discipline and intensity for the win against San Jose. And let's see if Beck gets a couple more minutes and see if he continues to be a nice little solution on the second line. So those are the things I'll be looking for.
And that's that.
You got to watch out for San Jose, especially that first line of Eklund, Celebrini, and Toffoli. They've been scoring quite well. But even the second line, like with Will Smith and Wenberg and Zetterlund, like they're going to have to really play a tight game and not give them too many opportunities and just take it to San Jose, hopefully get the lead and hang on to it.
Like I said, the matchup Celebrity and Hudson. I have a clip from Celebrity I would like to show to you. I will show it tomorrow night. He beat Adam Lowry on the board. And when you want to have 18 years old, to do that, you have to be an exceptional player.
Absolutely.
He steals the puck. He blocks his hands. Everything, the details you ask the player to do that, he did it. And Laurie could not do anything about that. So really, Celebrity is really an exceptional player in NHL. But
Coach, do you have
without both of you guys is impossible because the only reason the notebook is excellence because who you are.
You are awesome. You are amazing. You are the best. And remember, you have greatness inside of you.
Absolutely. You have greatness inside you. We want to wish everybody have an amazing, great night. Be well, be healthy. Find a way not only to dominate your day, but find a way to dominate the first half of what in our stop.
Year 2025.
He did it again. The Vancouver Giants with Tyler Top play tonight. Again, the Spokane Chiefs. Who is the best player for the Spokane Chiefs? Marco?
Spokane Chiefs, Catton? Catton? Is he still there?
Catton, yeah.
Madiga Dimitrov, I
Capa-
cannot complaining about that, but
no, don't complain. Don't complain.
I'm not going to complaining about that. For Canton, it is so a great matchup to watch. You can watch it live. We wish you both of you an amazing great night. I've finished the show. I can wish you next Wednesday for another notebook, and Mr. and after we see you Sunday night for the weekly report. Have an amazing great week.
Thanks
you,
guys, for
guys.
having me. Great working
Thanks
with you,
for joining,
Marko.
everyone. Thanks,
Good night,
guys.
everybody.
Good night.
Here we go, guys. This concludes another show of the Hockey National Show tonight. The Notebook Show we do every Wednesday night. We want to thank all the people in the chat for the likes. Ryan pop up at the last minute. Also, we want to thank Moderator Luciano and Ron and the chat tonight. We want to thank RJ Galbo, the news update, and all the people click on the likes and the super chat we got tonight. We appreciate a lot to get for Maurice Robillard. And we wish you an amazing great night. We'll see you tomorrow night, 7 o'clock, San Jose versus Montreal Canadiens. And of course, don't forget, please, to come back every night for another Montreal Canadiens show. Hopefully, you enjoyed the show tonight. And of course, one more thing before we leave, the Hockey National Show, the Habs Nation, want to tell you one more thing. We love you, friends. Have a great night, buddy. And of course, at the end, it's coming, Luc Laporcine. Booyah! Good night, everybody.